I am so excited for this next conversation. We'll focus really on the food and agricultural policies that I think have, sort of underlaid everything we've been talking about over the last day and a half. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome U.S. Congressmember Pete Sessions, who represents the 17th District of Texas. Please give him a round of applause.
And for those of you who are not from Texas, welcome to Texas. And for those of you who are from Texas, the 17th District is about 14 counties, goes from Waco to Pflugerville to Huntsville, out to Nacogdoches, Lufkin, comes back into Crockett. But what it contains is what would be known as the Carrizo, which is underneath Milam and Lee County, and there is more water about 45 minutes from here. There's a term called surface water and groundwater, surface water, groundwater. There's more groundwater there than surface water in all of Texas.
Thanks.
How about that?
How about that?
Don't know how you can use it, but good luck.
Thank you, Congressmember. So I want to start off talking about the Farm Bill. And, at Food Tank, we've always said the Farm Bill is the biggest piece of legislation that no one's heard about. What do you want folks to know about the Farm Bill? Are you hopeful that we'll get a Farm Bill this year?
The Farm Bill is two major sections. They have what I call Farm Bill. And then the other part is what's called SNAP. And SNAP is the nutrition part, that is essentially food stamps and a lot of things that come with that. School lunch programs, cheese programs, and a lot of things that are the underpinning of nutrition that our government uses. So previously, I was chairman of the Rules Committee, and I have handled, actually, as chairman of the Rules Committee, successfully twice getting the Farm Bill done. But it requires a bit of you being either tough or diligent. Why is this? And that is because in Congress and our committees, we put people on committees who like the committee. We put people on the Agriculture Committee. If you're a Republican, it's because you're from a farm area. Someone who might be like me, I've been a 29-year member of the Texas Farm Bureau. I come from ag interests, come from the interest of things that are about agriculture and farming and ranching and trade and doing these things that will grow that into the business, so to speak. But probably if you're a Democrat, you're on there because you want to be there for food stamps, programs, school lunch programs, and things like that, which means that there's a lot of interaction on both sides that people do not necessarily, I don't mean to use this word, work well together, but just not have the same common interest, if you could accept that. So on the Republican side, I'm a Republican. On the Republican side, when we had a guy named Frank Lucas, who's from Oklahoma, who was chairman of agriculture, he could not pass a farm bill out of the committee. Couldn't he make it out of the committee because they were so contentious at each other. What these pesky Republicans wanted, the Democrats wouldn't support. And then on the SNAP side, the nutrition side, the Republicans couldn't vote for all that. Competing interests. So I told Frank, well, just bring it to the Rules Committee and I will handle it. So I did. And the competing ideas were essentially on the Republican side. And they dealt with subsidies, which typically Republicans do not like. We have subsidies that are rampant throughout the whole Farm Bill. And one of them is about sugar. And sugar is a mainstay of almost every single member from Florida. So, if you want to pass the Farm Bill, you better make sure subsidies are in there or some form of subsidies to get those votes from them. On the other side, we had crop insurance. And these pesky Republicans don't all like that. And because there were enough people that did not want either one of these, or you find a balance, I took it to the Rules Committee. I self-executed it, which is what makes the chairman of the Rules Committee the most powerful chairman in Washington. I self-executed it, which meant I put the language in the bill myself. And then I dared people to vote no. It passed. We did this twice. It was done in the best interest of the country and to get these things done. It was not a perfect answer, but it balanced out as a positive for the people who grow food, the people who need nutrition, and the balance for the administration. Now, something that I'm not trying to teach anybody a lesson in here, but if you do not pass a new bill or agree to a new bill and it expires, it goes back to 1936 legislation, where you count every cow by county. It's old stuff.
Yeah.
Soviet, we call it Soviet era type law. So there's a demand on all of us, even the people that are unreasonable, to realize, okay, what we'll do is we'll kick the can down the road. And that's what we did. They did not have a tough old guy like me at the Rules Committee. They just didn't. And we don't now. And so no one really wanted to take it on. So we have now kicked the can down the road and said, we're going to keep it the same thing Pete did 5 years ago. We're going to keep that for another year and see if this year we can get something done. Good luck.
Thanks for explaining the complexity of all that, the need for bipartisanship, the need for compromising.
I think that's the key.
Yeah, I do too. I want to talk about something your colleague, Representative Shelley Pingree, said in a video
yes,
that she shared.
Yes, and she was here this morning.
She gave us a video. She couldn't be here.
Oh, okay.
And so let me tell you what she said in the video. She says that she is worried that what she calls slash and burn tactics of the Trump-Vance administration will hurt rural America, not help it, because of what she calls destructive trade and tariff practices. And I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
First of all, she's a straight shooter.
She's a straight shooter, for sure.
I like her. Know her, like her. She's from Maine, as I recall.
She's an organic farmer from Maine.
Organic farmer from Maine. Hey, here's that. You from Maine? You're just organic. Good for you. Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you. I only came for one reason. That's to do well enough to get invited back. So let's talk about, for a second, these tariffs. I'm an old guy, a Republican. My dad was Ronald Reagan's FBI director. George Herbert Walker Bush's FBI director. Bill Clinton's FBI director for a year or so. I come from a different school, and it is don't fight, but fix. Okay? I'm for fixing things. I'm for making things work. I'm for doing things where we establish, the world order, and we know who's on our side, and they know who's on their side, and we line up more of us on this side than more of them on that side. It's pretty simplistic. If I were teaching a course, I'd get better at it. But today, it's important to know most people see some destructive nature of tariffs. And I think I see it. But they have grown so much around the world because people have tariffs to protect the things that are industries in their country or markets in their country, and they have great influence over their parliaments or their government. And so they tend to, in an era where the world trades, not just with China and not just the United States, but it's important how you trade, that people want to protect what they need. And the power brokers in all these states find a way to hold it against the United States. So Donald Trump, right or wrong, said, how about if I treat you the same way you treat me? Didn't we kind of learn that in kindergarten? Mm-hmm. And yet, when it really gets down to it, it doesn't always work that way. And so what's in Canada's best interest or Mexico's best interest is not always in our best interest, even though we're trying to get along. And so what Trump is doing is using a good number of these they're more than a debate, they're more than a discussion, they're more than a negotiation. They're really serious attempts to say, why don't you not have a tariff and why don't I not have a tariff? But it's hard to sift through that and see it. So kind of like if you ever decide to get married, you're going to say to your mate, I want something to be as important to you as it is to me. And vice versa. I want it to be important to me. Can it be important to you? Well, no. No, I mean, my wife and I don't play golf. I'm not an athlete. I'm a football guy. So golf is not as important to me. So I have to say, go play golf. I'll be a stay-at-home dad. But when you get into tariffs and you start throwing stuff around, it's hard to make it work.
It is hard to make it work. And aren't you concerned that these tariffs are going to really impact your farmers in your district?
Well, let me take it. I'm a United States congressman. I try and go high. I know we go, well, your district, but
They're
yes.
your constituents. They voted for you.
Well, occasionally they do things like that. But I'm not saying they don't represent them. All I'm saying is it's not just cattle. It's a whole bunch of things that we really need to trade back and forth on. So what I would say is Shelley could be right. We're in the middle of a fight. And where I think Trump is really trying to take this is no or zero tariffs. It's just kind of hard to see that from where we're sitting. Don't do that to me and I won't do that to you is not what he said. He said, we're going to do to you what you do to us. And I'm a little bit older. I say, why don't you not do it and I won't? Let's cut a deal here.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get there. When I was chairman of the Rules Committee, I had to be able to vet Ambassador Lighthouser and say to him, how do you make this work?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, we're holding somebody out with steel and they're holding it against our agriculture. And you won't take our cars and we won't take your computers, and it causes prices to rise. It causes inconsistencies of trade mechanisms that are really important as the underpinning. So what do I say to Shelley? She's entitled to her opinion. We're not really where we're going to go, but it really shows how hard it is because India just straight out said, nope, we'll take it. We're going to keep it where it is. We're not going to change our stuff on you. So the president responded, okay, Prime Minister Modi, we're going to keep the same thing on you. And in between, they protected their interests.
Okay.
It's hard.
It is hard. I want to turn to something.
So it's not just forget you, bang. It's a matter of they were protecting their self-interest. And we were trying to say, let's go to zero, and couldn't get there.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I, started working in food and agriculture because I believed it could be one of the few bipartisan issues.
Should be.
And it should be, but it is not right now.
No.
And I don't know how we get back to that or if we were ever there, but I truly believe that food can unite us. And that whether we're talking about, tariffs on another nation or we're talking about SNAP and providing good nutrition to all families in America, why is that not bipartisan? Why are folks on your side of the aisle against SNAP?
The arguments that you just brought up, I appreciate and respect. The answer is because we used it as an inducement to stay in the system where you were rather than working. We had, as you may know, 7 million jobs that people weren't taking in their own communities. And we did give them food, and I got a Down syndrome son. I have been an advocate for the disability community, someone who cannot take care of themselves. That includes poor people, that includes intellectual disability, physical disability, but we're talking now in the broader part about able-bodied people who decide to stay where they are. And that's the fight. So you asked, I told you, that's the fight. So we had all these people that were receiving government benefits and not working. That's the fight, in fairness. So we kind of go back. We don't all have to go back to our heritage. They have nothing to do with it, but in 1607,
Sure.
If you don't work, you don't eat.
I want to say that, what you're describing, I think a lot of that is the exception, not the rule. People in this country want to work. They don't want to accept government benefits
They want
for the most
job
part.
they want.
But I've talked to people with lived experience who, these are single moms, single dads who have to have 3 jobs, and yet they can't make enough money to feed their families.
There are those too.
And they need the support of the government because they deserve it. And,
And so they got it. A family of 4 gets about the equivalent of $36,000 worth of support. And I don't argue, like I told you, I'm not arguing that point. All I'm saying is, if you're single, you don't have a kid, if you're single and you're 20 to 30 years old, you ought to be trying to work.
And I think
That's
those
all.
people want to try to work, but they're
That's
not
the-
always
that's
jobs.
the compromise.
They're not always jobs available to them. We're not going to take questions from the audience.
I'm all for that. I don't want to take you on because I don't disagree with
And
you.
I don't think it's respectful for the audience to
Okay.
shout out
All right,
questions.
that's fair.
So, we've been talking a lot about food as medicine over the last few days, and
You know what food also is?
Fo-
Food or lack of food is the number one reason why people move or
Well, that's-
migrate. They move somewhere else, including countries. Food is essential, and I would too.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. But now I'm going to ask a different question because you talked about that. There is a lot of concern from farmers in this country that the threat of mass deportations will really affect the available supply of labor for farms. And I wonder how you feel about protections for farm workers in the United States who are coming from other countries.
I feel that for the first year and a half or 2 years, that any administration, but this administration, needs to find criminals first. And our jails are full. They are not agricultural workers. Secondly, there are a lot of people who've received detention orders going back 7 and 8 years that were not found or booted out of the country. President Barack Obama holds the all-time record in deporting people, illegals.
Undocumented.
Undocumented. It is a problem that befuddles all of us on the right way to do it. And it does take place in rural areas. I remember when President Bush, George W. was in office, and there was, by and large, an agreement. Now, if the president were here, he could agree or disagree with me, but by and large, there was an agreement with the woman that was in charge of this for ICE. Her last name is Meyer. And she said to the industry, as long as you simply have whatever you've got, that's your business. But when we find there's a criminal enterprise around these areas, and the problem is it's a whole bunch of men, and they do import women. And she found that when there were 14 and 15-year-olds involved, because in Mexico and places in South America, a 13-year-old girl is fair game.
You're talking about human trafficking. I understand.
No, I'm talking about criminal behavior. She left them alone then. She left them alone unless there was criminal behavior. I think that there's enough business to do that we're not going to necessarily get there right away, which will allow a lot more discussion with this administration. That's what I think.
I hope you're right.
Well, it happened last time. And I think it's possible.
Well, I hope that we can recognize and support the farm workers that come to this country and then go back to their own countries who, help us all eat. They are the people who help us all eat.
We agree.
All
Look,
right.
I do agree.
I want to
go
switch
to Colorado, the same thing's in Colorado. Go to Arizona, go to Texas the same way. All I'm saying is there's more than enough work to do, but there's also this need to get rid of criminals.
I want to switch topics again and go back to food as medicine. We've been talking about that over the last few days, and I wonder what your thoughts are about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and this push that he believes to make America healthy again. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that, first of all, we are not healthy, and there are food additives. And this is one thing that my wife gets on me all the time about. Eat properly, do the right thing, get away from that canned food, do all these things. Well, my lifestyle does not always work that way, as I'm evidence of that. But I've lost 20 pounds since November.
Job. Nice job.
Okay.
We've all lost a lot of weight since November, I feel like.
Well. Okay.
Please continue, sir.
Gotcha.
There are no gotcha moments here. I want to have...
No, I'm having fun. Come on. She's okay. She knew we were going to get along before I got on here. My district director, Vicki, here
I love Vicki, by the way.
Said, we walked in, that was the first thing, they hugged her and kissed her, and hey, Pete. So I'm getting used to this. But I think that there is certainly, I'm for ideas and vetting ideas and seeing ideas and learning about it. And I'm sure there is an industry that does all these things, that they're not healthy.
Sure.
I'm right or wrong, I'm on Instagram, and I've learned about half the things I eat are on there, so I quit eating them. But I'm disciplined enough, and it doesn't mean someone else is too.
Sure.
So we have all over this congressional district that I'm lucky to represent, food deserts, right? Y'all know that term? Okay.
We talked about it earlier.
There are not always these avenues. So all over the 17th District of Texas, there are new organizations with fresh food where you can then get them. And they're popping up all over the place. Boy, I'm for that. RFK Jr., I think he's making a point, and I want to learn, and I want to take the best parts from him and be supportive.
Thank you for that. I think I'm wondering if you can all clap. I want to end on something, Congressman, that I think is really important. What do you want the folks in this room to know about the future of food and agriculture?
There are several things, and one of them is Texas, right here. You're in the middle of a state of Texas that is growing. A lot of people are moving here. I grew up in Texas. I turned 70 next week.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. I grew up, there were 6 million people I grew up in Waco, Texas. 6 million people in Texas. We're now 33. We're going to 95. Yes. It's the future. We're going to 95 million by the turn of the century.
Audience, I am the moderator. Be respectful.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm sorry.
No. Don't
pat
engage.
him on the back. In this triangle that goes essentially north of Dallas, Waco, Austin, San Antonio, over eastbound to Houston, and then a line up. That's where 2/3 of the people are going to live. And this is prime country for agricultural interests. The biggest attack that we have look, she asked the question, I'm just going to give the answer. The biggest problem that we have in farm country is it's cleared land. It's a lot of it good dirt. It's good for not only agricultural products that grow, but also land that's good for cattle. It's being taken over 30, 40, 50,000 acres at a time by people who want to come in and put solar panels in. And it's taking, you could go north on 35, as you go through Temple, 40,000 acres that is no longer usable as agricultural land. But this is being done because the power lines lead us to where we've got to take care of this $40 billion wafer factory that Samsung, you went by Samsung down here, but they moved their big factory to Taylor, which is about 15 miles due north. And it takes a lot of power. And we have these huge data centers and AI and all these things. That's the biggest problem with agriculture. We're losing good agricultural land, and it's not about to come back anytime soon because they're filled with these new panels.
Do you think renewable energy and regenerative agriculture can go hand in hand, though?
What I think is technology. So I was at Bell Labs in New Jersey in the mid-'80s. I've been a part of moving the country, technology, using our brain power. What's going to happen is that we're going to go big time to batteries. We're pretty well there now. Batteries will take all of this sunlight and take all of this power, we'll manage it, but we have about half as much power grid capacity now as we're going to need, they say, in 5 or 6 years. It's a daunting task. And we want AI, and we want all these things. We deserve it and we need it, but it's going to take us being careful. You simply asked the biggest problem, and I told you.
I want you to leave this. I've been trying to ask all of our panelists to leave the audience with a call to action. What's your call to action, sir?
I think the call to action that I have is that you are all young people, as I was in the 80s, who deeply believe that America's greatest days and yours are in the future. And I think we're going to get there. But it's going to take us listening to each other and maybe occasionally be willing to say, I didn't know that. I need to learn from that. And then getting on, without getting on a bandwagon, to get on a go-to fix rather than fight. And see if you can work with someone else like you're working with me.
Agreed.
I
Agreed.
think probably if we went down a list,
We agree on a lot more than we disagree on, probably.
that was what I was going to say.
No, I didn't mean to take your line. Sir, I want to thank you. I appreciate you coming here. It's been an honor to talk to you. Thank you so much. Give him a round of applause, everyone.
You're very kind.
You're very kind.
As I said, I only wanted to do well enough to get invited back.
Oh, standing invitation.
I am headed from here to the airport to fly to North Carolina. I'm what's called the subcommittee chairman for government operations. Any oversight anywhere in the world, as U.S. government, I have it. And I'm getting ready to go to North Carolina. And they had a very bad storm in October. And here we are months later, and they're saying, can you please come down here? We need someone else with a voice who's able to objectively see this for what it is. Try and be objective. You got a good voice. Use it the right reason. See, I think Buzz Lightyear was right. By the way, I just won $1. Because every time I give a speech, Vicki goes, I want $1. You didn't mention that great American guy, Buzz Lightyear. From here to infinity and beyond, let's all get there together.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Vicki.